Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibiers? Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. It's Thursday, January 22nd. Hope you guys are having a good day. If you're like me and you're in the line of this horrible winter storm that's on the way for the weekend, get ready, y'all. I've spent so much money on groceries, it's not even funny. I also got me some little crampons, which are things you put on your shoes that dig into ice. So if I have to go out, it doesn't result in me having to get a titanium hip. We're going to jump into the morning testimony of day 6 in the Brendan Banfield trial. We are currently at lunch, and I hope they are giving these jurors some espresso or something, because this testimony has been so boring. And really, to me, not relevant in the grand scheme of things with the confession we have from Juliana. A lot of it has to do with the reassigning of certain detectives and the catfish theory. But let's jump in. First up on the stand, the guy with the best name so far, Officer Robert Casanova. They bring in body cam from the day of the murders, and that is brought in under seal and no audio was played, so we heard nothing. The only thing we really had answered is when Juliana left the house, it was not with him, and he took over traffic control duties. Next up was Sergeant Ryan Ames. He is in internal affairs. They bring in an email that he authored and sent out to several people. The email included the executive summary of Brendan Miller's work in the digital forensics. He's asked if that executive summary that Brendan completed was an issue while he was there in cybersecurity. The witness said, nope, not while he was there. He was only in that for 4 months. He was forwarded a proffer, and then the witness forwarded that to the detectives and carbon copied his supervisors. The defense asked, are there 2 proffers in this? And the witness can't remember if this email has 1 or 2. They show the email. It was sent November 8th, 2024. And the subject is a forward of Juliana's proffer from October 25th, 2024. And in the body, he wrote, guys, I will need you to watch the proffer and look at the timeline. We will need to relook at the data in context to this new information. Please let me know if you have any questions. The defense asked if he was being ordered to do anything by the lieutenant in homicide. The witness said this is how information sharing happens. He is not a homicide detective in that squad. He's part of the support unit, so that's how information comes in. Digital forensics is a support bureau for all the other bureaus when they have digital evidence. Basically, his job is to field the calls and send things up the chain of command. What the detectives think are best for the case and things like that. Are you the type of investigator who follows the evidence or follows a theory before the evidence is developed? And obviously, the witness said he follows the evidence. When you question individuals suspected of a crime, do you let them just tell the story without challenging? Objection. On redirect, he wasn't involved in digital forensics at all in this case. He was not involved in Detective Miller's transfer or really any work in this case. He just passed on emails and that was it. The next witness, homicide detective Leah Smith. On the day of the murder, did you develop any theories based on what you saw at the crime scene? No. He asked for a timeline of any theories she may have had as an investigator, and she said she doesn't create theories until they have all the evidence. Once they have that, the Commonwealth will decide what they will use at trial based on the investigator's findings. Was there a time when supervisors were suggesting theories to the homicide detectives? The witness said there was a briefing in the first week, and Lieutenant Smuck, their supervisor at the time, said there were 2 theories in the case, and they needed to figure out which one was the right one. But those theories were not stated. So the defense asked, when did catfishing come in? And the witness doesn't remember. She started hearing it from other people. But after hearing that, she said nobody should have a theory in the case. They were still very early in their investigation, and they still should be gathering facts and investigating. In future meetings, the investigators on the case knew to investigate with an open mind, even though that might not be along the lines of what the supervisors wanted them to look at in the case. She's asked if the catfish theory ever went away. There was an objection that was sustained, but eventually she says it never did really go away. The homicide squad wasn't supporting the catfish theory. She said everything was on the table. They explored all options, and the catfish theory was always on the table. But at the end of the day, you still have to figure out first what happened in the bedroom to determine if murder charges are appropriate and for who. Once you understand what happened in that room, other events come forward through digital forensics and interviews. Was the catfish theory concluded when Juliana was charged? And the witness said Juliana was not charged for Christine. She was only charged for shooting Joseph Ryan. On redirect, in the meeting, you challenged it when supervisor said there's two theories and we need to settle on one. Did that affect your investigation? No. She said she followed the evidence that led to Juliana's charges, which was she shot Joseph Ryan. What was the turning point when Brendan was charged? And she said it was when they got the blood evidence back. On recross, he asked if she was pressured to follow a theory. She was not. She said, I know how to investigate, and I'm not going to change that. He asked who was applying any pressure to you, and she said whoever was in charge at the time, she named them, and that was it for her. The next witness, Matt Nielsen, he was a homicide detective before his promotion to sergeant in major crimes. On the day of the murder, he did assist with the investigation, writing search warrants and things like that. He's asked, what was your goal with charging Juliana? And he said the evidence supported the charges, but investigators believed there was more to the story that could be elicited from Juliana, and charging her led to a change in circumstances for her and Brendan. And he admits having her in jail may pressure her. There's competing interest between her and Brendan, and that may help law enforcement get more information. He's asked if that's what caused the change in Juliana's story. The witness said he was not involved in that. The information learned from jail calls did assist their investigation, but he was not the one who listened to them. The next witness, Patrick Bruce, he was the deputy chief of the major crimes unit, which covered the homicide unit. Essentially, he fielded concerns and gave advice. Were there concerns in this case? And he says yes, relating to the digital forensics. He told Deputy Chief Freeze that Brendan Miller would not be allowed to work on another digital forensics case that pertained to the Major Crimes Bureau. However, the witness did not ask for Miller to be transferred. It wasn't his decision. That was up to Deputy Chief Freeze. His transfer was classified as performance management. Were you in the meetings at that time as captain and involved in any theories of the case? The witness said he's sure at some point he was. For the catfishing, were you pushing that with your homicide detectives? And he said, we weren't pushing. There was a meeting where he actually proposed 3 separate theories, and they discussed those at the time. Did you propose the catfish theory? He did to the command team in March of 2024. It was not a conclusion, but he had a strong working theory that it was. What was your basis for Brendan Miller's transfer? And he said there were several. His work product, including that executive summary. His analysis was incorrect. Defense, do you have training in digital forensics? And the witness is like, I have my master's in computer forensics. So the defense, why would you differ from your expert's opinion? And the witness says because of his unsubstantiated deductions he made and a wrongful analysis. The witness would ask clarifying questions to Detective Miller and told him at least 4 things he disagreed with. Were you aware a peer review was done and they agreed with Detective Miller's analysis? Yes, but it held no weight because ultimately that analysis was incorrect. That analysis, of course, being that Christine was the one who created the FetLife account. He asked about a lot of emails he was involved in. It took forever. Did anyone say they were there to clean up the homicide division? No. On cross, you were a supervisor? Yes. He did not collect any evidence, though. As far as Brendan Miller, you said he had unsubstantiated deductions. And the witness said yes. One was in his executive summary that Christine was the operator of the device involved with that FetLife account, and that concerned him. On to recross, asked about the FetLife account, the witness said that evidence showed Christine was not always in control of her devices. His conclusion was Christine communicating with Joe was not only unsubstantiated, it was just wrong. What digital forensics did you look at to decide if it's unsubstantiated? He said based on his master's in digital forensics, you never attribute a device and or a username to a person. Defense, that's not supported by the extractions on the device. The witness says unless Detective Miller was sitting next to the Anastasia or Taco Supreme accounts on FetLife, he cannot say it was either one of them sending those messages. He was also in on the transfer of a Detective Bryant. who was in homicide. He said basically he was just in over his head as a homicide detective. And then another detective, David Giacchio, was also transferred. And up next on the witness stand was David Giacchio. And I'll tell you this, out of everything I've seen so far, the best thing this man has said is that Christine's pattern of life did not match what happened with the FetLife communications. And one of my listeners put this in the comments, and it's a really great point. That's something the Commonwealth should have put out there. They bring in emails, and he also says Juliana may have misrepresented things on her visa applications, and Custom and Border Patrol may have arrested her for that. Defense brings up, if the preliminary hearing did not go well, the case would have been dismissed and Juliana would have been released. So the failsafe was to have Customs and Border Patrol get her. The witness says they were planning to get arrest warrants, but that's not something he was a part of. They bring in a text from June 12th, 2024 between him and Patrick Bruce. The witness texts Patrick, Christine's blood inside Juliana's shoes and on Brendan's pants. Patrick responds, game over. They talk about a meeting with a task force after Celebrate and says they will bring 2 detectives up to speed after. Patrick says to hold off on bringing those other detectives up to speed and asks that they talk before this task force meeting. He's asked when he told the prosecutors about the results of the blood test, and he said probably within 24 hours of getting them. That's where we left off. That was it for the morning session. And other than Juliana's testimony, this trial has just been very boring. And I don't say that to be rude, because you have 2 people who are innocent and they're dead. But they have gotten lost in a lot of this. So this evening, when I do the afternoon recap, there was an interview with Joseph Ryan's mom just before trial started. Big thank you to my mods for shooting that over to me. I'm going to watch it because I do want to tell a little bit about Joseph Ryan. I'm still trying to find some things about Christine, people that knew her, to bring them to life, to remind us why we're here. But this defense case is very underwhelming, and I just think they're focusing on the wrong things. You can say that people were transferred out of the unit, but at the end of the day, the superiors were right. Can't fault Detective Miller for coming to that conclusion at the time. But after that proffer, the catfishing theory was confirmed by Juliana. When Juliana was on the stand, he didn't attack her credibility. He mainly focused on the jail communications. So to continue attacking the credibility of these homicide detectives after we know this was a catfishing case, I think this jury is probably just ready for this to be done at this point. But just my 2 cents. It means nothing. But I'm going to leave it there. So I hope you guys have a good rest of your afternoon, and we will see you later on with the afternoon recap.